Let me ask you something. When's the last time you sat in your car, radio crackling through a little metal speaker, popcorn in your lap, and watched a movie under the stars? If you're old enough, you remember it like it was yesterday. Back in 1958, there were over 4,000 drive-in theaters scattered across the country. 4,000. From California to the Carolinas. Practically every town had one. Today, you'd be lucky to find 300 left in the whole United States. So, what happened? Where did they all go? Well, pull up a chair, because this is the story of how America fell in love with the drive-in, and then, without much warning at all, let it slip away. It all started back in 1933. A fella named Richard Hollingshead out of Camden, New Jersey, had himself an idea. His mother, see, she had trouble sitting in regular movie theater seats. They were a little too snug for comfort. So Richard got to thinking, what if you didn't need a seat at all? What if you just stayed in your car? He rigged up a projector on the hood of his automobile, hung a screen between two trees in his backyard, and tested it out. Now, that sounds simple enough today. But back then, 25 cents a car, not per person per car. You could pack the whole family in for a quarter. Now it took a little while to catch on. The Depression was still squeezing folks pretty tight, but once World War II ended and soldiers came home and the economy started humming again, that's when things really took off. See, America was changing in the 1950s. Folks were moving out to the suburbs. Everybody and their neighbor was buying an automobile. And the car wasn't just a way to get around anymore. It was a piece of who you were. The drive-in fit right into that world like a glove. By the late 50s, you had drive-ins with playgrounds for the kids. Some had miniature golf. There was one in New Jersey, the all-weather drive-in, that could fit nearly 2,500 cars at once and even had an indoor viewing area for when it rained. 4,000 of these places, coast to coast. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a way of life. Now, here's the thing about the drive-in that a regular movie theater never could replicate. It wasn't really about the movie. Oh, sure, that's why you went. But once you get there, it was about pulling in around dusk, finding your spot, and watching the lot slowly fill up with cars. It was the kids running around in their pajamas before showtime, because, heck, you knew they'd fall asleep in the back seat by the second feature anyway. It was walking up to that concession stand and seeing those little animated shorts play on screen.
Looking for a tempting treat? Hold on till I absorb some heat. Some added tang might please you too. I'll slide into an oven-fresh bun.
During intermission, you remember them, don't you? The dancing hot dog. The popcorn box is doing a little jig, telling you to visit the snack bar before the next show started. For teenagers, it was one of the only places you could go on a date without your folks sitting 2 feet away. For young married couples, it was a cheap night out when money was tight. For families, you could bring the whole brood for the price of one car. And nobody had to sit still or stay quiet. You'd settle in for hours. And here's something folks forget. Drive-ins were often the only theaters in town that would let in folks who weren't welcome at the regular indoor picture houses, especially in parts of the country still dealing with segregation. For a lot of families, the drive-in was the only movie night they had. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't polished, but it was yours, your car, your blanket, your night. And for about 3 decades, that was just Friday night in America. Now here's where the story turns. And it didn't happen all at once. It crept up slowly, like a porch light burning out a little dimmer every night until one day, you look up and it's just dark. Reason number 1, daylight. Back in 1966, the federal government passed something called the Uniform Time Act. It standardized daylight saving time across the country. Sounds harmless enough, right? But for a drive-in, that meant the sun was setting almost an hour later in the summer months. You couldn't start the movie until it was good and dark. So instead of starting at 7:30, now you're waiting till almost 9. Folks with work in the morning and kids in school just couldn't keep those hours anymore. Reason number 2 is the land underneath them. Here's the part that really stings. A drive-in needs a lot of land, 10 to 20 acres sometimes, just sitting there with rows of speaker poles. Now in the 50s, that land out on the edge of town wasn't worth much. But by the 70s and 80s, cities had grown right up around those old drive-ins. That dirt lot was suddenly worth more as a shopping mall, or a housing development, or a parking garage than it ever was showing movies. A lot of owners did the math and realized selling the land made more money in one sale than running the theater would in the next 20 years combined. Can't really blame a man for taking that deal. Reason number 3, the multiplex. Around this same time, you had a new kind of indoor theater showing up. Instead of one screen, they had 6, 8, sometimes 12 screens all under one roof. Air conditioning. Once they got a little older, that comfort started looking pretty appealing. Reason number 4, and this one hit the VCR the hardest. By the early 80s, you could rent a movie and watch it right in your own living room. No driving anywhere, no weather to worry about, no waiting for it to get dark. Attendance at drive-ins had already been sliding through the 70s because of gas prices during the oil crisis. Folks weren't exactly eager to drive somewhere just to sit and burn more gas. But once home video took hold, that was close to the final nail. By 1990, the 4,000 drive-ins of the 50s had shrunk down to under 900, and the bleeding didn't stop there. Reason number 5, and folks don't talk about this one enough, is rising property taxes and operating costs. Running a drive-in isn't cheap. You need a massive screen, a sound system, a projector, staff, and insurance on a property that size. As land values and taxes climbed in growing suburbs, a lot of owners simply couldn't keep the lights on anymore. Literally. One by one. Town by town. The screens started coming down. So where did they all go? Drive around almost any American city today, and chances are, somewhere near you, there used to be a drive-in. Most of them are unrecognizable now. Some became strip malls. Some became apartment complexes. There's more than one Walmart parking lot in this country sitting right on top of what used to be a drive-in screen. A few became flea market folks figured, well, we've still got the land and the lot, might as well sell something on the weekends. A handful of the old screens are still standing, abandoned, rusting out in a field somewhere. Kind of like a tombstone for a Friday night that doesn't exist anymore. If you ever spot a big, empty, rectangular field in your town with a strange concrete pad still in the middle of it, where a screen used to stand, now you'll know what you're looking at. Now, here's a little hope for you before we close out. Drive-ins never quite died completely. A few hundred of them held on through the decades, run by families who just refused to let it go. Passed down from father to son, mother to daughter. And then, back in 2020, something funny happened. With everybody stuck at home and regular theaters shut down, folks rediscovered the drive-in. Lines of cars stretched down the road again, just like the old days. For one summer, the drive-in made a real comeback. It didn't last at the same scale, but it proved something. There's still a hunger out there for that feeling. Your car, your people, a big screen under an open sky. So if you're lucky enough to have one of those 300 left anywhere near you, go. Take the family. Let the kids run around before the show starts. Because once it's gone for good. That's the story of the American drive-in. If your town had one and you remember it, leave it in the comments below. Tell us where it was and what you remember about it. This has been the Lost Bulletin. Until next time.